treat yourself as, as set the standards for yourself as high as you expect the standards for your athlete. So if I think that Adele can win ADCC and she's going to, do this and that, then that's the standard I need to set as a coach. So I was coaching at an ADCC level before she won ADCC. You know what I mean? I don't take days off from coaching. I don't take days off from studying and things like that. So if you want to build champions, they need to see that you're invested in them so that they can invest in themselves. So I think that's a big issue with coaches. And I've spoken about this on podcasts before, like professional coaches. And at the moment, we don't have enough professional athletes to warrant enough professional coaches. But neither did Tim Grover when he took over Michael Jordan. And that's why she's got the results that she's got, because that's how she is as a person. Then you need to be acting like a world-class coach and working like a world-class coach.
What type of stuff do you like to study?
I study everything. I study matches. I study instructionals. I study people. I study books.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
Dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight Adele.
Hey guys, welcome to the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Today I have with me Miss Adele Fornarino and Mr. Jake O'Driscoll. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thanks for having us, man.
Really appreciate it, man.
Very glad that you're here. Of course, Adele Fornarino, double ADCC champ, and her coach, Jake. Before we get to the show, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. So I know you are here on this side of the globe because you just had a match from the day of this recording. I believe it was 2 days ago at Who's Number One.
Yeah. A bit of a whirlwind couple of days. We made the mistake of booking 5 a.m. flights out the next day. But so I don't know what day it is right now, but yeah, I think it was 2 days ago.
Nice. And your match was against a girl named Sofia Casella, which you won by straight footlock. Tell us about that match.
So it actually ended up being a last-minute opponent switch. So I was supposed to fight Alex Nguyen. She unfortunately sustained an injury and had to pull out, I think, 9 days before WNO, which was super unfortunate. I was really excited for that match, and I just hope that she has a speedy recovery and that she's feeling okay. So they put in Sofia Casella. I knew that Sofia Casella, is a great athlete. She's a great fighter. She's working her way onto the black belt scene. I think she's a fresh black belt from my understanding. But I did see her at the lower ranks. I saw her at Brown Belt World. She was actually in my division, but we never ended up meeting. But I was super excited for the match. I was excited for the challenge that was ahead of me. And, I was excited to get my hands on that 115 belt.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those of you who don't know Adele Fornarino, I mean, you should by now. She just won double gold at ADCC Worlds. She got a very rare submission against Bianca Basilia, who's a legend, a mirror lock from the closed guard when she stood up. I was actually in the building, and I remember watching that, and I was like, what the fuck was that? Was it a straight armbar? And then I looked, I'm like, oh, it was like an Americana. And then obviously you beat other legends in that division, like Bia Mesquita as well. Like these are like household names in female Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That standing mirror lock, is that something that you do often, or was it just something that you happened to feel in the moment and you just ran with it?
I'm definitely a fan of mirror locks. Like I use them in my day-to-day training. I think that they're kind of an underused submission. I think they go under the radar. But they're definitely something that I have in my repertoire. I've used it once in competition as well. I think it was at Black Belt Worlds, my debut year. So every now and then it comes out in competition, but it was the right time, the right moment. And Frank Mir actually happened to be in the building watching the match live, which was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that is super cool. And being one of the smallest athletes, I think you are the smallest athlete in that tournament, right? I
was the third smallest through the entire tournament, and then I was the smallest in the absolute division.
Yeah. So like going against, when you're going into an absolute division, like how does that change your, what's your mindset like going into an absolute division at the highest level like that? Is it the same as you would any other division, or are you thinking, okay, I might have to modify my game a little bit, might have to adjust how I approach the fights?
We definitely took, like, all the matches at ADCC, we took match to match. Like, in between all the matches, me and Jake would sit down and make sure that we were ready for the match ahead of us, not getting too far ahead in the future. So that means when we got into when we were doing the absolute division, we sat down, we made sure we were discussing what the absolute division was going to look like, different to how the 55 division was going to look. So we came in making some adjustments, but realistically, it's still all within like my style of jiu-jitsu. We didn't need to make massive changes. I think it was just about some other things became a little bit more important, like distance management, because of my size became much more important in that division than it was in the 55 division.
And then after who's number one, you got asked about potential opponents, and Fionn was, I mean, for someone like yourself who's won the titles you've won, obviously people want to see matches against like the best, and Fionn is considered one of the best, if not the best, female jiu-jitsu athlete right now. Is that a fight that you're really looking forward to? I think she's a bit bigger than you, right?
She's a little bit bigger than me. She has a little bit of size on me, but I want to take out all the top dogs. Like, I feel like I deserve those high-profile, high-level matches. Everybody, is wanting to see this Fionn match, so it's definitely something that's on the list. But I just want to. I have my eyes set on all those all those top-ranked people, even that pound-for-pound ranking, like all the girls that are at the top of that pound-for-pound ranking. I really just want to cement myself as the best grappler that's out there at the moment.
For sure, and you're on your way to doing that. I mean, the match that I want to see is you and Helena. That would be fucking unreal. She's pretty big too. I think her and Fionn are around the same size, right?
Yeah, I would put Helena as bigger than Fionn, I think. Not by like a super substantial amount, but I'm pretty sure Helena is bigger than her. But I like that would be a really fun matchup. I think that would be cool.
I think that's a match, one of the biggest matches that we can make right now in ladies BJJ. And I've been at tournaments and I've seen Helena, and she's massive. Like she's like 5'7", 5'8", like that's how tall I am. And she's very wide in the chest, very broad, excellent leg locks, obviously dominant in the majority of her performances. Could you give us some insight as to like what, or maybe, I don't know if you don't want to talk about it, what are some of the things that you would think about if, let's say, that match got made and you had to approach that opponent?
That's why I keep Jake around. That's why
she wouldn't know. She would have no idea.
Well, maybe that's a question for you, Jake, or maybe you don't want to talk about it because that is a potential match.
No, I think, like I've told Adele this a lot. I think Helena is very much the future of the sport. Not that Adele isn't. She's 25.
25, yeah.
20, yeah. So not that Adele isn't, but I think like Helena has a big future. I think that match is better sooner rather than later, because I think they're going to go in different directions. Like in terms of matches they're taking and their career. Adele's been on the circuit for a very long time, and is in an opportunity now to pick and choose what she wants to do. Whereas I think Helena's still coming up through the ranks in terms of like tournament experience, big super fights and stuff. I've definitely looked at it. I've definitely loved watching Helena compete, because I think she says no to absolutely nobody. She'll compete against anybody. So I really respect that. I think, the big difference though in the terms of the two is like Adele has this superpower, I like to call it, and it's not just because she's gay. She has a superpower.
That does give me a superpower.
It is a superpower. She has a superpower of being able to break people and get a hold of them and really just put them under such immense pressure that a lot of the women don't really understand it until they either train with her consistently or have to compete against her. And I think that's where our, let's say, our breakthrough will come in that area. But we've looked at it. I've looked at everything. I've got game plans and strategies everywhere, and they'll change, the more the women compete. But anyone that's in like that top 10 list of opponents that Adele might face, I watch whatever they're doing and everything they're doing all the time. It doesn't matter if it's a local Naga or it's a WNO. If they're competing and Adele might face them in 12 months, the Fornegras are another one. They're coming up. I think they've got a bit to do before they got a match with Adele, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would want to see that match at some point. So I watch what they're doing. You know what I mean? I make sure that I'm on point of what they're doing and how and things like that. so that when Adele does have these matches, she's fully prepared.
Mm-hmm. Does being gay give you a superpower?
100%. Absolutely.
I've got no idea.
100%.
How?
Well, like statistically, at ADCC, in the female divisions at least, we had a straight run.
Yeah.
It was me, Anna Vieira, and Rafaela, and then me in the absolute.
Yeah.
So we had a straight run.
Science.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? Causation or correlation?
Yeah. So any girls, don't worry about drilling or studying.
Yeah.
Just
yeah. No eco bullshit.
Yeah.
How'd you both get started in jiu-jitsu?
Oh, I got started when I was like 9, 10 years old. And I got started because at the time I wanted to be a police officer. So, 10-year-old me was like, oh, what will help me be, a great police officer and chase down all the bad guys and get the cats out of the trees and whatnot. And martial arts was kind of the way to go to make sure that by the time I was old enough, I was prepared. And I just Googled the closest martial art gym near me. I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was. If a karate place was close to me, I probably would have done karate. But jiu-jitsu happened to be the closest place, and I just got stuck into it.
What about you, Jake?
I started later. I started when I was about 19. I was playing semi-professional Aussie rules football, and I thought I was going to go into the professional ranks, but I was told I wasn't fit enough, which I know now is just a cop-out. I just probably wasn't good enough.
Maybe it's too short.
But yeah, definitely. I'm 100% too short, so I definitely knew that. But no, I just so I wanted to get fitter. I started boxing. I had a private boxing coach, and then he made me wrestle with some guys, and I didn't really want to do it. But as soon as I started, I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and I stopped playing footy instantly, and just started doing jiu-jitsu, and just developed from there. So it was a really spontaneous. Wasn't even looking for it. Didn't even know what it was. I watched UFC and stuff back then on DVDs and things, but I didn't understand what jiu-jitsu was or anything.
Mm-hmm. And your gym is called Essence BJJ?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, in Perth, all the way out in lonely WA.
So you compete as well. I was creeping on your Instagram. You compete and you do quite well in the tournaments over there. How do you find a balance between coaching and competing? It's
hard. To be fair, like I don't really coach. I mean, it's since ADCC, it's been a little bit different, but I don't really coach as many athletes like I do Adele. And that's not because I don't want to. I think it's difficult to find. I mean, she's obviously talented. I always say this. I would never take credit for her talent. But, when we started working together, we started to implement some things and she really started to trust the process. And, that's something we spoke about on Wednesday night. Like, I just tell her to do something and she trusts it comes from the right place. It's massive, So most of my coaching is usually pretty basic that you'll see in most gyms across the world because that's what most jiu-jitsu people want. I prefer this, I prefer to work individually with athletes, and I'm actually looking at something with your brother to bring that to the forefront of everyone's attention next year, like a platform to do that. But it takes a long time, man. So Adele understands that I do love to compete, and she understands I do have my own goals and things like that. Before ADCC, it wasn't too much of an issue. Now we definitely do have to kind of correlate schedules a little bit better because I am getting older, man. I'm 33. I have done a bit, not as much as her, but enough that I'm content with what I've done. Never not wanting to push. I still want to do more and more and more. But, if I was to retire today, I'd be happy with what I've done.
Retire from competing, you mean?
Yes, yeah, definitely. But she's always going to come first for the next, little bit. I actually told her I'd get her 5 world titles and she's got 4 at the moment.
Well, wait on. You said 5 ADCC titles, and now it's recently changed to 5.
You said 5 ADCC titles. So she's got 1 more, and then I'm out, which she's not happy about.
Yeah, because we ticked them off all this year.
She's not happy about. But, no, it honestly doesn't get too much in the way, man. I'm a pretty motivated, dedicated person. I don't do anything else. I've got a young daughter that takes priority. But outside of that, all I do is train and study and just make sure I get my reps in as well.
Do you find it difficult to teach and to train simultaneously? Like you're coaching athletes at the highest level and you're competing at quite a high level. When you're teaching a class, I when I teach class, a lot of the time have to kind of observe, you know, rather than jump in there in the mix. I want to, but I feel like it takes away from my coaching ability.
Yeah, so my gym's actually pretty good, man, because we started super small and I still have a lot of the core group. We kind of have this like they understand when I'm competing or they understand when I'm working with Adele, and you know, they really enjoy me training as well. I think they really get that I'm still an athlete as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I also spend a lot of time with them, man. So like a lot of time before and after sessions, I answer a lot of questions. I'm pretty available, you know, and that's probably one thing I'm trying to work on personally, is not be so available, because I do answer questions all the time and it can interfere with, you know, my friendships and things like that. But my gym is really good, man. They're great, and I'm so grateful for them. You know, I'm so grateful. Like, I'm here in the US for the next, you know, I'll be here for 2 weeks, firstly helping Adele, and then I've got a bunch of athletes at Nogi Worlds, and it looks like I'll probably jump in as well. I've signed up. We'll see what happens. But
Nice.
And the guys and girls back home, man, I always check the cameras just to see what, you know, the classes look like and that. And it's still busy and they're still having fun and they're still loving it. And, you know, I'm so grateful for that. I think it's just like they don't see me ever making excuses or slacking off. So if I was like, I want to be this world-class coach and this world-class athlete, and then I'm just not training much, or I'm fucking around or whatever, they'd probably be a bit pissed off when I jetted off to America for a bit and was doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But because they see how hard I work, I think they understand that, yeah, I do take this seriously. Therefore, it's part of the process.
It really does help to have a coach who's motivated and passionate, because that definitely translates and trickles down into the room. And when they see a coach who competes, I assume it would motivate people to compete as well. What do you find more rewarding, winning tournaments or coaching students who win tournaments?
Me?
Yeah.
I think now it's coaching. Yeah, I really do. I think when I was coming up, man, I had this, and we've had this issue in our own relationship where like I still had that ego, and I needed to prove myself and validate myself for others by competing and winning stuff. And, you know, I wanted people to look at me a certain way and respect my skills in a certain way. And when I started to respect myself and validate myself, then it doesn't matter to me anymore. You know what I mean? Like I said, man, I've won some stuff. I've done some stuff. I make a living off jiu-jitsu. Like, my daughter has a comfortable life from jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't have another job. And I think that's very rare. You know, it's not something that even just because you win a world title, you're going to be able to do. So now it's like, you know, if we just take Adele, for example, she wants to be the greatest. She wants to leave a legacy, and, you know, playing a small part in that is actually really fulfilling for me, you know, and like, she's more adamant about me doing stuff like this and capitalizing as a coach than I am. You know, I just enjoy her success for her. You know, I don't want it for me. I don't care, you know, like, and that's the truth. And she knows that.
Sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get him to like post on Instagram, or getting him to like, you know, do the podcast and all the things. Sometimes it's honestly like pulling teeth. Yeah.
When people congratulate me when she wins and stuff, I'm like, I appreciate it, but it's her, you know, it's not me. Like, I get my role and I love my role. And I understand it completely. And I think that's why we work so well together too. You know, like, it's difficult sometimes when you get a student like her that starts to get all this attention and you don't get any, and then you want to take it off her. Like, well, I did this and I did that, you know, like, most of her strategies came from me, but they're her wins. Like, I don't want that. They're hers, and she knows that. So I think coaching now gives me more fulfillment than competing, man.
Mm-hmm. When you're preparing for a tournament, or when your students are preparing for a tournament, and you analyze, you know, the potential opponents, what are some of the things you're looking for? Like, can you sort of run me through the process? You know, okay, we have this tournament on this date. Here are the people in the division. We have to prepare for them. Talk to me about that process.
Tournaments and super fights are different, man. If Adele's got a tournament, I don't really look at individuals. I look at her and just be like, okay, how are we going to implement our game across the whole division? And then when the brackets come out, I'll do individual breakdowns, and that'll be like pretty intensive and exclusive. But man, I go deep, like real deep. So if Adele's got a super fight, man, I will know like not only what the girl's game is, but like what she's doing, who she's hanging out with, what her coach is telling her.
I feel like that's why I felt so bad about the switch of opponents with the WNO.
Yeah.
Because he had 9 days to then do.
You did so much work
on the next, and he now has all this information on like one
Alex,
person
yeah,
that we don't
that I've just stored away just in case. But like I said, man, like it's crazy because I really do go deep and leave no stone unturned. And it's not just get on YouTube and watch a couple of matches, man. Adele knows this. You know, I'll speak to her about stuff and she'll be like, how do you know this? And I'm like, I'll go everywhere and anywhere to make sure I figure it out. You know, and a lot of it is mental too, man. Like I kind of understood, and, you know, Sophia and her coaches might disagree, and that's okay. But I kind of understood her mentality coming in, or what I thought it would be, and what I thought she was going to try and do because of that, and where she was at, and, you know, take all that into account. And I pass that on to Adele, you know. And again, the biggest thing that I think is trust. You know, she trusts. So when I say, hey, Adele, we need to do this and this, she actually, Flo, we're doing a pretty good behind the scenes for this WNO. And I'm kind of hoping that it does feature a little bit of what we were doing backstage, because it is pretty different to what a lot of people do. But literally it's like, Adele, okay, I want you doing this and now. And then she'll just do it. And people don't understand it. It's not a case of me wanting to be the boss and I'm the boss of the ADCC champ, I get to tell her what to do. It's like, no, she understands if I'm telling her to do something, it's for a specific reason. And the funniest thing is that the way that match played out, especially the ending, was to a T of what I've written down on a piece of paper that I gave Adele 9 days ago. And literally like side, entry, everything, you know? So like and that was across the board too. We did that at ADCC. You know, there was a lot of things that we implemented that just come on board, and it's surreal sometimes, and we just work really well. It's like, honestly, to me, when I coach Adele, it's like playing a video game, man. It's just like,
that's kind of what came to my mind when you're talking like that. It sounds like you're playing, like you have a controller and you're playing a video game.
But I can't stress enough, like, it's not the details and it's not the knowledge, and I'm not doing anything different in terms of like what others can do. Like, it's very easy to do what I do if you're prepared to put the work in. What's different between the athletes and the coaches, number one, is the professionalism. She works like a professional, so I work like a professional. It can't be just one or the other. I can't want it more than she wants it, and she can't put in more work than I put in. But then the other biggest aspect that a lot of people don't understand, man, is the trust. It's the trust between the both of us. You know, I'm not with her every day. She lives on the other side of the country. But if I tell her I need you doing this, this, and this, I know she's doing it. I trust that she's doing it, and I know she's going to do it. And when I tell her, she trusts that it's come from a place that I've researched and I've got extensive knowledge on. I haven't woken up and been like, let's do back takes today because you haven't done that in a while. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Can you run us through some of the preparation that you had against Sofia Casella? Like, so the opponent changed. Sofia, we find out she steps in, and now you have to prepare her for that. Just run me through, you know, a little bit of the process of preparing for that match.
So, like, the all-round training camp felt really good. I think what made it really easy to have a switch in opponents is that we made sure like I was well-rounded. But we've been working towards that for quite some time. We definitely had some specific things going into this match. But it looks very, like, people would look at it and say it almost looks quite basic what we're doing, because we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just being really specific and really researched and really professional and making sure that we're ticking all the boxes. So that's, you know, whether that's specific positional stuff, whether that's within rounds, looking for particular positions, asking like people that I'm training with to give me particular reactions, you know, all those kind of things are what makes the difference. It's not getting onto the mat hoping that the right training partners are there, hoping that they give you the right reactions, hoping that, you know, you're going to get the coach is going to give you the right timing of, you know, the rounds. It's about like taking charge of a lot of those things, and as well as being really conscious during the training. Everybody can rock up on the mat and hit out 5-minute rounds, but it's a different thing being able to data collect from all of those rounds, being able to make adjustments from all of those rounds, being able to actually implement the purpose of those rounds. So if you say you're going to do something, but then you start seeing something else, or maybe you go towards your A game, it's like pulling it back to actually what you're supposed to be working on.
Mm. And Jake, like, so when you found out that Sofia was the new opponent, what was your first couple moves?
Well, Adele sometimes forget there's a time difference between where we live. So she called me at like 5:30 in the morning and was like, "Hey, guess what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm asleep and my daughter's got to go to school in a minute. Like, I'll deal with this in a second." But no, like, I'm confident, man. Like I say this all the time. She's the best female in the world. I don't think it's close. And I don't think it's close because of how much better she's getting. Um, and again, I'm biased, and people can disagree, and we want them to disagree. The more they disagree, the more that better fight she's going to get, and the more opportunity she's going to get. So please disagree. I thought it was brave of Sophia to step up. I think she should have. I think you get an opportunity like that, you don't say no at all. I think that she brought something different to what Alex was going to bring, but at the same time, it's just we do too much work to get complacent, and that's an issue for the girls in the division because we don't stop ever. Even today, we were at Atos HQ for their pro session, and Adele trained. But before we trained, we went over her finishing sequence because there was some things I didn't like about it and some things she didn't feel comfortable with, and we just sharpened those up. And like she won in 4 minutes? And we're still sharpening things, you know what I mean? And that's the same thing, like I was saying before, like I didn't tell her, hey, you should have done this and this because I think I'm better than her. It's because I want her to be better, and she listens because she wants to be better. And that's the kind of athlete she is, man. It's like she's going to consistently keep working in all aspects. So when I got the Sophia news, it was just more of like, okay, where is she at? Where's she been lately? And, what is she going to bring? I also study their coaches too, how they coach, what they're coaching, what their style is, how they work with their athletes. So I also knew what her team was probably going to say during the match. So I can also understand where they're coming from as well. So if they give some different advice, then I might have to change my advice, So it's, I'm confident, man. I'm confident she can beat anyone on any day. I think she could beat anyone at any weight. That doesn't mean she has to, but I think she could as well.
Well, she's kind of proved that. Jake, what did you do before this, like for a living?
Man, jiu-jitsu. So odd jobs until I have no skills outside of jiu-jitsu. Odd jobs, man. I worked in the supplement industry for a long time. My dad was one of the first people to bring supplements to Australia. So I started in that pretty early. And then that gave me an ability to train quite a bit, like a full-time athlete. I actually lived in the States for a while, a couple of years, like on and off. Every 3 or 4 months, I'd come out here, train, go home. I live with Admar Barboza, absolute legend of the sport. And then all I did, man, was just go home and work, which is something we were talking about yesterday. These young athletes don't understand. Like, you're going to have to work until you can not work anymore. But I would just work, retail or security or as a sales rep, and then just train as much as I could until I could open my gym. And then when I opened my gym, man, I was put all my eggs in one basket, which was scary at first because I had a young family too. But I was able to make it work, and now we're here. So I actually don't, that's the thing, man. If this doesn't work, I don't really have any options.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're on the right path to success anyways.
Yeah.
Question for both of you, when it comes to competing and I guess coaching, how much of it is mental? How much of it is physical when we're talking about like when you use the word like work? You have to work until you can't work anymore. How much of it is mental? How much is physical?
Yeah.
Man, I subscribe to the theory that it's way more mental than physical. I think the physical is the easy part, man. And it's the easiest part for most people, right? I tell people this all the time. So the training room at Essence is a little bit different to everyone else, and we cop a bit of hate for it, but that is what it is. But anyone can go in and put, 10-minute rounds on the clock, and it's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not that difficult to do in terms of like structuring that way. But being able to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and consistently doing that for an extended period of time is so difficult. You know what I mean? Like, you think overnight success with someone like Adele, but again, she's been training since she was 10 years old. The ability to not quit over that period as she goes through life, I don't even think you hit puberty yet, but when she goes through puberty.
Definitely have it at my growth spurt.
When she goes through puberty, meets her first girlfriend, starts dating, the allure of the friends doing other things, the fact there's no money in jiu-jitsu, like people don't understand these little aspects. So the mental aspect, I think, is way more important. And we focus on that massively. We don't not do the work, but I put more effort into how she's thinking and feeling and how my athletes are thinking and feeling than how they're actually, executing on the mat each day. Because everybody knows, you train, man, we all train. You can have some days that are the best day and you might have partied till 2:00 a.m. the morning before, sorry. And then you can have some days where you've like eaten everything right, drank everything, slept well, watched your favorite movie, you got the hype up music on, and then you just get smoked by everybody. Like it's one of those things, man, that the days change so much that it's just about consistency over time. So for me, it's more mental. About you?
I would say, yeah, it's definitely more mental. There's no questions asked. I think everybody can go in and train and do rounds and feel fatigued and all those kind of things. But I think it's much more about like the discipline of it and being able to do it consistently. Jiu-jitsu is not like most sports where there's an on season and an off season. It's all year round. Sometimes you get 2 weeks notice on matches. You got to be ready. You have to deal with the ups and downs of, people dropping out last minute and, all the social media side of things and people giving you shit on social media or, teammates acting up, all the little things that can distract you, all those little things that can draw away from the actual thing that you're trying to accomplish, which is staying mentally focused and switched on and locked in for the actual competition. So I think it's definitely a mental game. I think I'd say this a lot where it's like motivation can go up and down, it can peak and trough, but discipline needs to stay consistent. And if discipline doesn't stay consistent, you're not going to reap the rewards of, the work that you're putting in. You're not going to get the shiny medal at the end of the rainbow.
Jake, what advice would you give coaches for building champions?
Like as athletes, competitors?
Yeah, like any piece of advice for coaches.
Treat yourself as what's the word? As set the standards for yourself as high as you expect the standards for your athlete. So if I think that Adele can win ADCC and she's going to, do this and that, then that's the standard I need to set as a coach. So I was coaching at an ADCC level before she won ADCC. You know what I mean? I don't take days off from coaching. I don't take days off from studying and things like that. So if you want to build champions, they need to see that you're invested in them so that they can invest in themselves. So I think that's a big issue with coaches. And I've spoken about this on podcasts before, like professional coaches. And at the moment, we don't have enough professional athletes to warrant enough professional coaches, but neither did Tim Grover when he took over Michael Jordan. He was the first one, right? And now there's a million of them. So things can change and they do change. But I think that's most important, man, is like making sure that the way I'm coaching and the way I'm acting and the way I'm leading is by example, but also by example of my work ethic. And work ethic, like we just spoke about, isn't always just doing rounds or sprints or lifting weights. You know what I mean? Like Adele woke up yesterday on the plane and I was studying. You know what I mean? Like that's just what this life is. And that's why she's got the results that she's got, because that's how she is as a person. And if you just take my coaching resume as itself, that's why I've got the results that I've got, because I think I'm one of the hardest, if not the hardest working coach in jiu-jitsu. And I still know I can do way more. I'm 33. So if I really wanted to pursue coaching just as a career of athletes, we've spoken about this, I think I can really change the game. I just don't know if I want to do it or not. I just don't know if I want to spend the time doing it. But I really feel like I have something to offer in that department. So any of the coaches out there, if you're just running a team, like your structure you're probably running is probably correct, and your student shouldn't expect more of you if you just want to teach classes. But if you want to produce world-class champions, then you need to be acting like a world-class coach and working like a world-class coach.
What type of stuff do you like to study?
I study everything. I study matches. I study instructionals. I study people. I study books. I study athletes past, present. I study future athletes. I look at, the younger generation and, what's changed from them. Yep. I will absolutely anything and anywhere I can. I went to pro class today and, man, I asked more questions than probably anyone there today because I've got a match coming up that I want to put a lot of effort into, and I've got some answers. I've got some questions I don't have answers to. So I asked them, you know what I mean? I'm not above that at all. You know what I mean? And it's so important to me, in my opinion, to be like that. But anything, like we went to Barnes and Noble yesterday.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say.
Yeah, and I bought a multitude of books from different sports that I can, I bought a book on Bo Jackson. Most people won't know who Bo Jackson is, but he's probably one of the greatest athletes of all time. And I want to know why, because I've never found a book on Bo Jackson. So I bought it so I can try and figure out what he was doing.
I don't know a person on this planet that's read more sports autobiographies than Jake has. Like, I every time we go overseas, he'll finish books and then we'll go back to the bookstore. He'll grab like 4 or 5 books and then he'll run through those.
How do you like to run your classes when you're in, at home teaching, Jake?
Just a normal class or a pro class?
Is there a difference?
Yeah, massively. I don't treat we'll say hobbyists, but obviously sometimes the pros will train with the hobbyists and vice versa. I don't treat them the same, man. Because
Can you tell me about both?
Yeah, of course. So the hobbyist, man, I just do a normal structure. We do some like active drilling for 15, 20 minutes. Then I'll coach for, 15, 20 minutes and they'll drill that out and ask questions. And then we'll get a lot of live training in. The environment is a lot more fun and social and a lot more easygoing. Like if you want to sit out, if you rock up late, if you want to go home early, if you want to sit on the bench and go on your phone, you do that, man. Like you're paying to be there. It's up to you. It doesn't bother me at all. You can get the most out of it. You can get the smallest bit out of it. It doesn't bother me. But one of the quotes one of my black belts gave me once, I used to get frustrated, man, why people didn't come to jiu-jitsu and just want to be the best. Like they're just as good as they can be. Like, why do they not want to do that? And he was like, bro, everyone that goes to the gym doesn't want to be a bodybuilder. And I was like, damn, he's right. So I was like, okay, don't treat them like that. But then if you come to my pro class, it's the opposite. You don't rock up late. You don't get to sit out rounds. You don't get to just take unnecessary water breaks. You don't make excuses. You're there to work and you're there to get better. And we have 3 different kind of sessions for that. We do like either a lot of 3-minute rounds and specific first point, or we do some longer rounds with specific first point, or we do group work where we work in a group of 3 and you do like 2 in, 1 out kind of thing. And we rotate through those 3 sessions a lot. Every morning will be like drilling into the session and then Q&A after. And then I'll teach once a week in those pro sessions. Other than that, it's all just live training. So the pros really have to come to the hobbyist class too if they want to get more technique. But also as professionals, I expect them to be trying to study outside of the mats too. I always say, and I say it to Adele too, if I'm the only source of jiu-jitsu information that they take on, then they're letting themselves down because I'm not the only source. There's multiple sources. So like she works a lot with Lachlan Giles, and people always ask like, oh, how does that relationship work and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I love it. If she asks me a question and then asks Lachlan and prefers Lachlan's answer, do that because that's what's going to help her, whatever she's most comfortable with. I have no issue with her learning. She trains at Atos with Professor Galval. Like if he says something and I've said the opposite, it's up to her to decide which one she wants to do. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Like it's all good, So I think that's super important as well.
Do you have like a favorite person that you like to study or a favorite author? Like who are some of your go-to guys that you look to for inspiration and instruction?
Man, like in terms of like learning how to be an athlete, I think Kobe Bryant is probably the epitome. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, he's not here. But we just bought Lakers tickets actually, which we're stoked about.
I'm so excited about that.
That's probably the one. Not so much an author, man. Like because I read so much and I listen to so many audiobooks and things like that. But I definitely gravitate more towards like basketball players. I think with Adele, we work with a lot of tennis players. Yeah. Adele relates to tennis really well because her partner Nev played tennis at a high level, so that's something they can bond over. So I read a lot of tennis autobiographies too to help kind of shift the focus from what I'm trying to say to something that they can relate to. But yeah, not really, man. Self-development wise, all the basic ones, Tim Grover wrote some really good books. The Slight Edge is a book that I've read. I've given it to Adele. Adele's not a reader, but I did get her a book.
I'm gonna download the
the
audio
book,
version of it.
The Slight Edge is one I read every year. I think that's a great one, and I read one the other day, Good Vibes, Good Life, or something like that. I thought that was great, man. It really just talked about how to be happy and enjoy what you're doing. I think that's a big one too, man. So those are usually pretty good.
What about in terms of like jiu-jitsu content?
Oh, who do I like to study from? Yeah. I mean, like, I think, you Danaher, you Gordon, they're probably at the forefront. I'm very lucky to have a very good relationship with Lachlan Giles, and Adele obviously does too. But, Lachlan was kind of my idol coming up, and then I became good friends with him. So I love a lot of the stuff I do, I took from him. So he's really good in that regard, man. JT Torres, I got a pretty good relationship with JT. So, he's a great one too, man, that I like to study from. But nothing specific. Like my game is very leg lock orientated, and I have a lot of leg lock knowledge. So anything that comes out leg lock wise, I'll watch. Even if I don't get anything from it, I'll watch absolutely everything. So yeah, I think probably Lachlan Giles is probably the best one, man. Submeta, big shout out to Submeta. I think that's an awesome platform to change things for everybody.
It is good.
Yeah, and Adele's got some content coming out there soon.
Got 5 courses that are going to be released on Submeta hopefully really soon, if I can get my shit together and start actually editing them now that I'm done with WNO. I can sit down and get everything pumped out.
Yeah, and that's probably a segue too, man. Like I have a Submeta account. I'm really good friends with Lachlan. I could text him now, he will reply, and I pay for that account. People got to stop wanting free shit. Like pay for things. You know what I mean? If you want to study from someone, I'm sure you're going to torrent it. That's up to you. You run that risk. But like when I was mentoring with JT Torres, I paid for his time. You know what I mean? Like this relationship is a very good friendship, but Adele pays me as well. She pays for my time as a coach. So that's, a small segue that people got to understand that she pays her nutritionist. You know what I mean? She pays her gym membership. It is what it is. That's the life that you live,
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is if you get used to like not paying for things, or maybe I'll phrase this in a different way. If you give things to people for free, there often tends to be a lack of value associated with that thing. Whereas if there's even just a small fee or a small thing asked in return, it just automatically that person will associate what you're giving them with more value. Right. Yep. It's like if you're going to buy something online and it's too cheap, you almost look at it and you're like, something's not right here. Like why is it so cheap? And
I think jiu-jitsu people are very giving of their time a lot of the time. Like I love talking about jiu-jitsu. I love answering people's questions, and I get people, catch me out on it where they'll tell me, they'll be like, no, book her in for a PT because it's much more appropriate, rather than waiting till after class to ask me questions and kind of catching me out on that.
Yeah.
It is, and it's hard for me to say no because I enjoy it so much. So it almost feels like I'm getting paid for something that I enjoy doing anyway, but it is really important to, show your support for the athletes. It's how we make our living. It's how we're able to actually go out on the stage and elevate jiu-jitsu as a sport for everyone. We're doing, we're getting out there doing the job of trying to bring it to the wider audience, bring more money into jiu-jitsu, bring more, more eyes to the sport in general. And part of being able to do that is running seminars and people paying to be at those seminars, or doing instructional content and people paying for that instructional content, or running PTs, whatever it's going to be. And I think people undervalue how important that is to support the athletes.
Jake, you had mentioned that the majority of your pro training is live training. Are you talking about like task focused games? Is it target sparring? Is it scenario specific?
Yeah, we don't play games, bro. I don't understand it. I haven't even, to be fair, it's not something we do. We spar a lot, man. We go live a lot, but we also, one thing that we do in our room, which is so important, and I think, being at Atos a little bit, I think it's, especially with the guys the guys and girls. When I say guys, I mean everybody. Don't want to offend you, you lesbians.
Got to be politically correct.
Yeah, sorry. The thing we do different at our gym, man, I tell this to people all the time, like the person next to you cares about you more than they care about themselves. They care about your goals just as much as their goals. So like, I know that I can go 100% with Adele, like in training, figuratively, and I'm going to protect her and she's going to protect me because we care about each other. So we can spar a lot because no one's trying to win. You know, it's a very skill development focused room. So when we do specific training, I love first point, man. I think it's one of the best ways to get better at jiu-jitsu. And you can be so specific with it and get reactions that you really need that you can do it all the time, man. So when I mentioned Admar Barboza, I got that from him. When I lived in America, we'd do 3 sessions a day, and 2 of those would just be first point sparring for an hour. And then at night, we'd go to the hobbyist class, and then we'd get longer rounds in and things like that. I implement first point training with Adele all the time and get her to start from different spots and work, you know. So that's one thing we do a lot of, man. The active drilling is not like your normal static drilling. It's not like hand here, hand there, go. It's like constant movement, constant reactions. And, you know, you get some resistance, but you're always going to win. So let's say I'm practicing a guard pass. Adele might make it difficult for me, but I will get the guard pass. You know, eventually I'll be able to pass and things like that. And then I think one of the most important things, man, is we review every session straight away. So like I'll sit everyone down in a group. If you go on the Essence page, you see photos of it everywhere, man. Everyone sits down in a group. Everyone has the ability to talk, or they're allowed to. Obviously, being a leader, it's usually directed at me, but like I definitely do try and deflect it a little bit. But I'll review straight away. I'll review how we trained, what we were focused on, what we have coming up, who had problems, why these problems occurred, you know, and then from there, my athletes will then also go and do notes. And then they'll reinforce it with the notes. So by the time they come back, it's been reinforced 2 or 3 times what they got out of that session. So it's retained. You know what I mean? We don't just go, oh man, we smashed. That was great. Good session. Boom. Let's go.
Let's go home.
No, like everything is like implemented consistently. And then when they come back at night, it'll probably be a lighter session and they can fix the things they did that morning, because not only have I told them, not only have they reviewed it, but they've also written it down. And again, not a lot of people like to write notes, so Adele might film something, you know, or that doesn't bother me, or, you know, they might, whatever it is, however it is they like to take it down, they can do that. But, you know, then we fix it straight away, man. So it's constant evolution. That's the most important thing. It's never just left to chance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. I'm going to start getting into some controversial questions now, and you know, you guys can give whatever answers you want. There's no judgment on my part at all. I'm completely impartial, and if people disagree online, I don't give a fuck what they think. It's my show. I can say whatever I want. So
I like it.
Do you think performance enhancing drugs should be banned in BJJ across the board?
You want to take this one, or you want me to take it?
Oh, you go.
My reasoning behind it is it sets a bad example for the next generation that's coming up, and it completely neglects the reason why they're performance enhancing drugs, why they're normally banned. And that's a lot of the time the health risks, the long-term health implications of these performance enhancing drugs are significant. And the more high level people we see taking these performance enhancing drugs, the more it normalizes it, the more these younger people are going to start taking it and not understand the future health implications that they have. And then in their 30s, 40s, get heart attacks and, you know, get high blood pressure and all these problems that they can't then go back on because one of their sports idols is taking performance enhancing drugs, so they think it's okay. But this person that's taking the performance enhancing drugs don't really give a shit about what the next 20, 30, 40 years of this other person's life is actually going to look like. I think it sets a bad example. I think that it's not a necessity. I think if everybody, you know, stops taking it, then everybody has a level playing field. And I think that that's really important.
And this is what I love about our relationship is I'm probably on the other side, man. I don't care. I definitely care about kids. I've got a daughter, obviously. I don't want
I think we all agree that kids shouldn't be doing testosterone.
100%, yeah.
Let's just clear the air there. I don't think I'm not going to say nobody's advocating for that, because there are teams that are, you know, there's whispers of them giving their superstar kids that are like 10 testosterone. Yeah. And I think ethically speaking, we can all say that's wrong, right? We'll just clear the air and say that.
Yeah, on the other side of the fence of that, man, like I compete in a division that's full of people that are geared up, and it's never bothered me.
It's called Masters.
Yeah, it's true. But like even as an adult athlete, man, like the lightweight, middleweight division is full of people that are pretty juiced up. That's the average size of an individual, man. So it doesn't really bother me. If someone came to me and was like, "Oh, I'm juicing," it wouldn't bother me. If Adele came to me and was like, "I wanted to start," like it wouldn't. And like morally, I don't really care.
Let it be known on this podcast
That you're natty, yeah. She's
exactly.
100%. 100%. If it was like banned, then yeah, I think it's something different. You know what I mean? And I think Gordon spoke about this yesterday. It's not. I think anything he says is going to be controversial, but I definitely understand what he's trying to get at. But also, like I come from the thought process too, man, of two things. Is one, I don't think there's a lot of research into performance enhancing drugs as people think there is. Like a lot of it came from our parents who were told steroids are bad. So then they told us. But also my parents were told that tobacco is good and that you should smoke every day.
Yeah. Margarine is good and fat is bad. And yeah.
There's that as number one. There's that as number one. And then the number two is the illusion that our high performance athletes, our elite athletes at the highest level, NBA, NFL, etc., Olympics, that because they get tested, they're all clean. Which is an absolute fucking joke because they're not true at all. So like that's also the big illusion, right? Like, hey, you guys are in a semi-professional sport, don't take drugs, but the dude making $100 million a year, he's clean. No, that's not true, man. I think the only thing for me that crosses the line is if you're allowed to hit someone. I think that's the biggest thing. For me, it's like MMA or boxing are the easiest examples, but you could use NFL or whatnot. If I'm allowed to hit you in the face and I'm geared up and you're not, that I don't like.
Yeah,
because that definitely is going to alter people's, lives that they can't control. What Adele's talking about is people injecting and then not being able to understand the further health implications. Mm-hmm. But this is someone actually taking that choice from me, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, and Adele had mentioned, she thinks that it should be banned or whatever, but clearly she doesn't seem to mind to fight people who are juiced up because you're doing ADCC. And
dude, if I was not okay fighting people that were juiced up, I would never be able to fight. That's the problem. I'd never be able to have a match.
She gets the comments all the time that she's juiced and she's geared up because of how how she looks and how quite shredded she is and thick and stuff like that.
I have good genetics.
So it's just
I thank my mum and my dad for that. That's been my performance enhancing drugs.
And good work ethic.
But no, like I think that there are some things that are banned on the wider list that maybe shouldn't be banned. I think that a lot of that stuff is under research, but it's the ones that have the health implications. Like we're talking about the more severe ones.
You're talking about testosterone or like trenbolone and things like that?
It's dependent, right? In the female division, testosterone, yes, but in the male division, there are some males that have lower testosterone levels, so I can understand, if they're seeking out help from a doctor, I can understand it through that pathway. But if they're just going across the tier 1 border, injecting themselves in the back parking lot and then coming back, like...
We can do that? Do we have time for that?
We're in San Diego. It's like... I think that people need to like look after their bodies and understand what they're doing to their bodies and understand the risks that they're putting on themselves.
I think there's a difference between like, getting juiced up for ADCC, like Gordon Ryan, just like, within a couple of months, he's like, 30 pounds bigger or whatever. And like a dude in Masters who's on TRT because he's like 40, or 45.
They're two very different categories. It's like, what's the one that's going around at the moment? Some peptide that's going around that's really helping a lot of people.
BPC.
Recovery. Which is banned under WADA. But do I think that like if somebody has a niggling injury, there's not an elite level athlete, like should they take it if it's going to make them feel better? Like it's not. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that performance enhancing drugs need to be banned. I'm talking about the more severe stuff that.
Or maybe are you referring to the dosage? Because it could be healthy in small doses. Like even like I have a naturopath who takes testosterone and he takes it because his genetic predisposition he's more susceptible to things like Alzheimer's. And he told me that testosterone can actually curb things like Alzheimer's. And, as women get older too, a lot of women neglect, balancing hormones and hormone therapy, but it can actually be very, very beneficial health-wise as they age to take particular hormones, especially after menopause, when their hormones, start to really decline. So I remember coming up in my 20s and thinking like, yeah, steroids are cheating and all this stuff. And, they are definitely the way some people use them. But also I think we're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we're neglecting a lot of the health benefits that can happen when used if properly. And again, I'm not advocating for kids to use. I would never do that. That's completely horrible. And I also don't think that it's ethical to do a crazy cycle right before the Masters 3 division of No-Gi Worlds or whatever, and then you go in and you crush, and it's like, so I think it is kind of a debatable topic, and I think that there is a gray area. It's somewhere in the middle. I think that the health concerns definitely are there if it's abused over long periods of time, but I think in small doses it can really it can actually enhance somebody's life and improve their quality of life. And then I would ask you, like, do you guys take creatine? Do you take Advil? Like, are these not performance enhancing?
So I'm more, when I talk about kind of performance enhancing drugs, more talking about abusing performance enhancing drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the higher stages of things and self-medication and things like that. When we're talking about like medical intervention for a number of different reasons, I'm not against that. I'm against people abusing performance enhancing drugs for the sheer fact of athletic performance.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's take like the, some of the greatest of all times in their respected fields? Like you got like the Anderson Silvas, the Gordon Ryans. I can't use Craig Jones because he hasn't won gold medals, but obviously I consider Craig Jones one of the greatest grapplers of all time. John Jones, these guys use gear, and they've either been caught or they've admitted to it openly. In your opinion, as an athlete at the highest level, does that affect or tarnish their legacy at all? Because we all consider John Jones the greatest fighter of all time, regardless of his outside of the cage antics or the fact that he's popped before. Like, does that affect your ability, or do we just say, no, that guy's the best of all time, and that's not debatable?
Do you think that Usain Bolt is the greatest sprinter of all time?
Do I think he is?
Yeah.
I know nothing about running, but I would assume from a place of ignorance that, yeah, he is.
Yeah, I would agree with you for sure, but I would put a bit of money, I think, that he would have taken something at some time.
Mm-hmm.
But because he'd never been caught or admitted to it, then we assume, obviously, until proven guilty. I don't think it takes away, man. Like, I don't. Like, I'm a big fan of elite athletes. I'm a big fan of elite people in general, in any field. If they're going to achieve something, musicians, businessmen, businesswomen, whatever, Adele's mom is an extremely successful businesswoman, and that's where Adele can draw a lot of inspiration from. So, like, I always look at it more of like the body of work than and their skill set than all the outside noise,
Right.
man, because it varies with every person. And like you said, man, like, do you watch soccer at all or not? Not really.
Not at all. No, I did play a couple of years when I was a kid. I
I
don't even watch sports unless it's grappling or MMA. And I play on 2 hockey teams, and I don't watch hockey. I just play.
But you know who Lionel Messi is, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, he's been on growth hormone since he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But no one talks about it, and no one mentions it, and because he had a deficiency. So technically it's not cheating, but it's still growth hormone.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still the greatest, if not one of. So it's like, how can we pick and choose? Because Michael Phelps is another one. Michael Phelps has a deficiency in lactic acid, and he just happens to be the perfect swimming body. So do we put that against the fact that he's the greatest swimmer of all time?
Is he on gear?
I don't think he was. I don't know if he's on gear, but he has a deficiency in his body that doesn't produce lactic acid. Now, don't quote me on that, but I'm very sure it's close to that.
You're saying it so
Yeah,
confidently that
I have done a lot of research on Michael Phelps, but obviously his wingspan, helps him swim a lot. Like he's got the perfect swimming body.
Right.
But there's also something in his body, like he doesn't produce the same amount of lactic acid as a normal person would, which obviously helps with his endurance and his ability to push himself, et cetera, et cetera.
No, when I said that before, like, am I on gear? No, but I have good genetics. Like, it's true. Like,
It happens, man.
I have good genetics that.
But I can't sing. So, like, should I be mad at, Usher because he can sing better than I can?
Why was Usher who came to mind?
I don't know.
Why was Usher?
I've been listening to sad Usher songs lately, so it just came to my mind.
Oh, that's good. Okay, we're almost done here. It's been real fun so far. It's just blowing by. Adele, I wanted to ask you. You're in a sport that is, it's still the majority of it is male dominated. And for you, does that make it easier or harder to make an impression? Like to stand out, to be successful, and to be noticed. Does that make it easier or harder for you?
Harder, 100% harder. And it's funny because Flo was quoting me the other day where I said, I don't want to be the best female grappler. I want to be the best grappler. And if you just read through the comments section, there were a bunch of guys that were just butthurt by that.
It's Gordon.
Yeah, but they're just like, we'll put her in the male division, like, oh, this, that, the other. Like you guys are missing the point. You guys are missing the point of this. Like, I want to get all the titles. It's not about like actually going against males or being like able to like beat guys that are, twice my size and 150 kilos or 200 pounds, whatever that is. It's about like accomplishing all the things that I'm able to accomplish as an athlete. It's not, I think it is quite hard to make an impression as a female because if you come off as dominant or aggressive, then the wider audience will generally just see you as like being a bit bitchy and being a bit like rude or like mean, rather than like when a guy does it, it's like alpha and it's strong and it's like, oh dang, that guy's like super confident. When a girl does it, it's like, dang, what a bitch.
That wasn't ladylike. Yeah.
No, it's not lady. No, I'm not very ladylike at all. But
our society does have different standards. It's true.
The society wants, like, if you look at female grappler Instagram followers, tell me who has the most followers, tell me what kind of content they're posting. And
the ones that show their ass.
Exactly. And I got no intention of getting my ass out. I don't think my ass is going to get many views on my Instagram either. I think people would be like, what the hell are you doing? My mother would be traumatized. So by that, like, I do think it is harder. I think like I have a decent like line of accolades, but not as many followers as some guys on the circuit that have significantly less accolades than I have, but a higher following. And all of a sudden, because they got less accolades, more followers, they are worth more and they should be getting paid more at these events. I think if you look at the actual numbers of it, the female like reels that are on Instagram or YouTube videos get incredible views. Like they get fantastic views. So why are we getting underpaid? Why are we getting undervalued? The Fiona McKenzie match, if you look at the views on YouTube, if you compare those views to the finals of CGI, which was Levi and Cade, and Nicky Rod and who was the finals? Felipe Andrews. If like the Fion match has, if not in line with the Levi finals, if not more. Mm-hmm. We draw views, we draw audience. So why are we getting underpaid? Why are we getting like gaslit into, you don't bring as many people to the table and not many people are as interested in watching female jiu-jitsu. It's a load of shit.
Mm. Do you think that transgender athletes should be able to compete in the women's division? I'm going
You really do want to get me canceled, don't you?
No.
No, not at all. I mean, if anything, it's me. I'm the one. So yeah, we don't have to put this in the podcast if you don't want.
No, that's fine. Put it in.
Because it's a legit question, like we just saw that boxer, and she had XY chromosomes. Now we're in a situation where, someone with XY chromosomes is punching someone in the head.
Yeah.
And
So-
it's different from a grappling match. You know, it's different from like a basketball game or something. We're talking about like, if it's good for one sport and not good for another sport, like it should be, at least we should be able to discuss it. And so,
but
like,
it's not
yeah, go
far
ahead.
off. It's not too far off boxing. Like, yes, obviously getting hit in the head, different. But we're talking about like you go into a match where you're trying to break something on someone else.
Yeah.
And the amount of force you can put through people's joints, ligaments, bones.
Yeah. And bone density, right?
Bone density, even like the thickness of like ligaments and tendons, things like that. Like a male's ACL is thicker than a female's ACL. It's just like, that's just how it is. So to answer your question, do I think that transgender females should be able to compete against biological females? No, I don't. That is not in any way, shape, or form me saying that I have anything against transgender females. Let it be known.
Okay, guys. So Adele Fornarino hates trans people. Okay, guys, have a good night. Well, this is the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu.
Should be live on the podcast.
Yeah,
Tell the truth.
do like in an ideal situation, like there should be a separate division for transgender females, like, and they can all fight each other, and that allows them to still participate in competition. And that's, I think, a more fair and appropriate answer to the this issue. But it's hard because there's not many transgender females in sport.
Exactly.
So it'd be really hard to get a pool of girls, transgender girls that can actually compete against each other. But in an ideal situation, that would be the answer to the question.
Like a transgender division.
Yeah, I think that would be more appropriate. And then that way, it's not about leaving people out. It's not about it's not about not wanting transgender females to be able to compete at all. It's about making it fair, everybody being in the right division. At the end of the day, there's a reason why there's a female division and a male division. And it's a safety reason, right? It's a fairness and safety reason. That's why they have a split in divisions. That's why a lot of combat commissions through at least a bunch of states in Australia, it is mandatory to have a female and male division. You're not allowed to actually let them fight, and it's a safety reason.
Mm-hmm. And we haven't seen that in jiu-jitsu. We haven't seen that sort of gender crossover thing happen in this sport. I think probably because Brazilians are generally pretty like conservative, and I don't think that it really in their culture. It doesn't translate over into this culture. Like when you renew your IBJJF membership, there is no option to say other when it's time to put your gender or whatever. It's either male or female. But for me, just so the record's clear, I absolutely agree with you. And I think now it's a little bit safer to have that opinion. It's not about a hate thing. It's about fairness. And I have a daughter. Jake, you have a daughter. Like, imagine your daughter is training her whole life to become an athlete, a swimmer or a boxer or a grappler. And now, she gets to the biggest stage. And now you have someone who is born a biological male competing against your daughter, and your daughter gets knocked out, or your daughter gets her leg broken or something horrible like that, or as we've seen, a transgender athlete could just like demolish the records that have been set by females. And at that point, like, really, what are we doing from an ethical point of view or a fairness point of view? So I 100% agree with you, and I'm glad that jiu-jitsu hasn't gone that direction, because I believe that jiu-jitsu is still, at least it's still standing on a ground where it respects female sports. And I respect you greatly, Adele, for even saying that, because a lot of people will probably get triggered by that. I don't know. Honestly, though, who cares what those people think? Because
That's what I mean. I'll probably cop some hate for that.
Who cares?
She gets so many tranny comments.
Oh, dude, I get them all the time.
Like, they think you're transgender?
Yeah, they think I'm transgender, and I think it's guys that just have smaller arms than I do.
There's one guy that goes on every one of her posts and just comments.
Oh, you know this guy?
No.
It's Jake on his burner account.
When she told me the other day, I was like, that can't be right. And then I went through the videos. I was like, this guy just doesn't stop.
Yeah, and he's DM'd me as well. And he's commented on a bunch of my friends' stuff as well.
It's wild.
It's hilarious.
That's really pathetic. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the majority. Yeah, go ahead. I think the majority of people who who don't want that crossover between the genders, it's not about hate, right? It comes from if I'm being honest, for me, it comes from a love of women's, keeping women's sports kind of their thing and letting them do their own thing. Right. You start putting biological men in there. And I think that, you really start to disrupt what women have built in their sports and trying to develop their own standards and pave their own way. You start introducing biological males. It kind of changes the whole dynamic of the whole thing, right? And it's hard to go back from that.
There are so many guys that get offended at the idea that women are trying to compete and say that they're better than men. Like we don't live in this alternate reality where we don't understand that men are genetically like fitter, faster, stronger on the average scale, right? They have an easier tendency to build muscle mass, generally speaking, more bone density, generally speaking, more like aerobic capacity, I think is one of the ones on the list that nobody's trying to argue that. It's not about that. Right. It's not about like actually putting men versus women. It's about seeing the capacity of men at the highest level, seeing the capacity of women at the highest level. Like we don't need to constantly be trying to compete against each other. I think it's stupid.
Would you ever compete against a transgender woman if you got asked?
I just disagree with setting that standard. I don't agree that it should be allowed in competitions.
I also think like she's on a different path to most people, but also like those kind of gimmicks, she doesn't need them and we don't need them as a team. So like I don't, that specific one is take that specific one out, but just in general, like we don't need that. You know what I mean? She doesn't need to be doing that to build the legacy that she wants, because
100%.
we talk about this all the time. Like there are a lot of people that are good at jiu-jitsu, a lot, but there's not that many that are great, and she wants to be great. And that's what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't need to be doing that stuff. And I tell her this all the time. It's not just that specifically, but with some social media stuff and other stuff. I'm like, I told her 12 months ago, she was a bit upset about not getting an opportunity or something. And I was like, don't worry about it, because in 12 months' time, you're going to be fucking undeniable. And you're not going to be able to be left out, because you're going to be the best. And that's just how it's going to be. And then look where we are.
And that is what happened.
And it's the same thing, man. There's some fights out there that people want to see or they want to match her with, or, and it just doesn't make sense for the legacy that she's trying to build. And it's her legacy. So it's her choice. I mean, it's no one else's. When we look at fights and we look at opportunities, she will ask, hey, Jake, what do you think? And I've told her in the past, no, you shouldn't do that. And then she'll do it, because it's up to her. It's her career. It's her legacy, But in my opinion, she doesn't need it. And she knows I'll tell her the truth on that stuff. If she came to me and like, Craig wants to put $1 million up for this match, I don't know, like I get a pretty good cut of that. So I'd probably push her in a certain direction. But besides that,
he wants you to fight half of Mendez.
Yeah, I would actually. You wouldn't mind seeing that
for $1 million. I mean, fuck, come on.
I mean, he's going to beat the shit out of her, but that's all right.
Hey, know your strategies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Your fault.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, you're like, well, it's not needed for her legacy. It's just kind of like pointless energy. It's just not needed in the sport in general, right? Like we don't want jiu-jitsu to become like an attraction like boxing has become with like the Jake Paul versus Tyson or Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva, where it's like these matches that are kind of just like, what are they? They're just spectacles, right? You want to do it. You want to fight the best girls and beat the best girls, and you're doing that. And I definitely am going to be watching in the future, because you got some exciting matches lined up for you for sure. It's going to be awesome. All right, guys, that's basically, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, man. Like I get the Jake Paul stuff, man. Cause like Jake Paul, he's trying to make money, right? Mm-hmm. That's what is actually happening. They're making him, his benefactors, the other athletes, they're making money. Mm. She's going to make money. We get that, but she's also going to build a legacy. It's different. You know what I mean? You can't confuse the two. And this happens a lot in our sport when someone like her wants to be, fucking great. People get so upset about it. Like, what do you mean you want to be great? Oh, you want to be better than me? You think you're better than me? Come back here. Like, you're not better than me. It's like,
The blue belts in the comment
Oh,
section
man.
telling me my
Like-
technique's shit.
like imagine, like
Doesn't
let her
look like
try.
shit.
No, bro, let her try and be the best ever. And if she fails, she fucking tried.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
A lot of what these guys can never do, right? All the comment
And that's the thing.
keyboard
And that's
warriors
where-
would never do. Is try.
That's where we focus a lot of our attention, man, on like what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like the Fion match is a great example. Everyone wants it right now. It's like, yeah, we already had plans. You know what I mean? We had plans before she won ADCC, and they're paying off. So we'll fight Fion when it makes the most sense. Neither of those women are scared of each other. Trust me, they're not scared of each other. Fion's not scared of Adele. Adele's not scared of Fion. They're both extremely good.
Yeah.
But when it makes sense is when it will happen, and it makes sense for her career. You know what I mean? We're not going to be pushed around by anybody.
No, 100%. It sounds like you are a fantastic coach, and clearly you both care about each other. You have a great relationship, and man, you got the chemistry to go all the way and to win at the highest level. Awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we get out of here?
No, just appreciate you having us on, man. Like I always very appreciative when people want to talk to us. Well, especially me. You know, she's the star. But thank you for giving us your time, man. And I apologize. We're supposed to do this post ADCC, but it was a bit hectic with time differences and stuff. So now we're in the US. I'm glad we got it done.
No worries. I appreciate your time. You're both doing No-Gi Worlds, are you?
I'll be there at No-Gi Worlds, but I won't be participating at No-Gi Worlds. I have some opinions on No-Gi Worlds.
Interesting. Well, maybe I'll get them at another time.
Yeah.
This episode will definitely come out after No-Gi World, so it's irrelevant anyways. But Jake, if you're going to be competing, best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. So that's the show. And if you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. Thank you so much, Jake and Adele, for joining us. It has been a great conversation. Remember, the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. See you guys.